when you can frame it to yourself as being really intentional about where you're going to put your energy and your resources and your time, of which we are all short on, just the way life is, right? Then it makes it easier to imagine, okay, if I have fewer people that expect something from me or that I'm going to pour into, then I can really, really double down on the relationships that feel super aligned and impactful for me today and where I want to be tomorrow and in the future.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Going there. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
We're here. We're back after Memorial Day weekend. How are we doing, Mandi?
Amani, I'm in Renovation Nation
Yes,
hell.
yes,
I'm not
you are.
gonna lie, it's
Tell us
been
what's going
crazy.
on. Tell us what's going on.
Oh, this has been nuts. Well, let's see. A lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. So our general contractor and one of our vendors were emailing. It seemed as though they were having a tiff. We intervened and realized that the general contractor was giving wrong measurements to one of our vendors, which is obviously not a good idea. We talked to the vendor. The vendor was frustrated. It's a vendor we love, and we're like, we cannot upset this guy. So then we hit pause for a second. It feels like almost 2 weeks ago. And my husband and I then started calling everybody that we know in this side of the business, in the renovation, construction type business, outlining some of the things we've been seeing because we've never done this before. Like, we're old people, but we've never done a home renovation remodel before. And as we interviewed different people, 100% of them said, this is odd. These pink flags should be red flags. Like, this guy is not good at his job, run like hell.
Okay.
So we were like, well, let's just wait till we get the final piece of information, to which he was supposed to send it 3 weeks before. And he ended up sending it Friday night, holiday weekend, 6:44 p.m. It was all wrong. I even asked, did you read this before you sent it? Was what I said in the email.
Yes.
Then from that moment on, last Friday to this past Friday, we interviewed 3 new general contractors, checked 9 references, checked 5 licenses, viewed about 50 after product pictures of like finished product
hmm
pictures,
hmm
met with 2 at our house, had a designer come over and measure, have new designs that were drawn, and we're actually seeing them today. So as soon as we're done with this show, I got to skate back to the house to see it. So, as long as these designs look like acceptable, we're going to move forward with these people. I think we're still not sure, but
Okay. Okay.
man,
Mm.
has this been a real live and learn. And it's so funny because both of the contractors that came to our house were explaining what we're doing with our back sliding glass door.
hmm
And both of them are like, what? That goes up to your roof line. You don't have any room there. And I'm like, our general contractor said we could do it. Like, literally, if we would have let this guy finish the project and open up our house, it would have been one of those things like every time he opens something up, there's a new disaster waiting to happen. So it was a blessing in disguise. And quite honestly, when we called him to fire him, it was like a 40-second conversation. He didn't really seem to care.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Either he was too busy to care, or he had people around him so he couldn't say like, why are you firing me?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, it was a non thing. I even said, if you would like to know more, feedback. He's like, no, that's okay. I was like, oh, well, all right then. Yeah, the whole thing's been bizarre, but I think we're in a good space now. It's a full-time job vetting new contractors. Like last week plus working, it was very, very stressful, but
Okay.
I'm glad we've lost some money, but not enough money to make it like more stressful, I would say.
Okay. So we're on the other side now.
We're in the middle of it. We're almost on the other. If we sign with these people, we'll be on the other side, and then it's
Yeah.
the renovation, which presents its own
Yes.
stuff, which we're prepared for. We know there's going to be disasters in there too, but measured disasters. We're ready for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
What about you, Amani? What's been going on? What'd you do for Memorial Day? Are you done with school for the year? Like, what's happening in your
Yeah.
world?
So school is done for the year. Grades are turned in. I do have one student who I have to grade one of her projects. She was late in turning it in. I had to give her an incomplete. She had like got a doctor's note with like mental health issues. So of course I give her grace. So this
Aw.
Thursday, I'll grade her work and then that'll be it. But that's it. So it's good. Great semester. I'm headed to Atlanta this Friday to speak to National Speakers Association, the Georgia chapter. Then I'm doing
Oh,
a book
cool.
event that evening. So I'll be able to
Oh,
circle back and fill you in on how that goes on Monday. But that's what's
oh,
up this week. You'll be very proud. I've been mad at work soliciting for this beta coaching program I have for musicians. So I got
okay.
16 people in it. It's a free program, but I applied all the solicitation exercises and strategy you gave me. So it worked. So then
Nice.
you can help me next week
Yes.
convert them to paying customers. I'll ask your advice for that next week.
We will convert them, Amani. And
Yeah.
it's not even going to be a convert. You're worth every penny. So they're going to be
Amen.
throwing the dollar
Yeah.
bills at you.
Yeah.
It's worth
Well,
it.
yes.
It's
Oh,
worth
I like that visual of throwing dollar bills, but we'll keep it there for now. We'll keep it
it.
there
Be
for now.
raining. Be
Yes.
raining.
Yes. And
Yeah.
we'll get to our guest today. So
Let's
I
do
had the
it.
pleasure of meeting Baily Hancock. We were at WEC. We were on the speaker committee because you know how we do the speaker committee, Mandy.
Hmm.
And we were on the speaker committee, and Vaughn had introduced us. We have a close friend who introduced us, and she came to speak and was lovely. And we kept in touch afterwards. Then that thing called the pandemic happened. We had job changes, all these things. But now she's joining us today to talk to us about what's new, her career, and all the things. So we're going to give a round of applause and welcome Baily Hancock to our show here. Welcome. Round of applause.
Aw, hey, Bailey. Welcome.
Hello. I'm so grateful to be here.
We're
Yes,
glad you're
we're
here.
happy for you to be here with us. We have many different ways we're going to take this conversation, but I thought maybe can you share with us what are you doing now and how does that compare to what you were doing the end of February 2020?
That's a great question because it feels like another lifetime. Back in February 2020, I had just returned from maternity leave with my first son. He was, I think, about 6, 7 months old at the time, and I was returning to speaking. It was going to be the great return post maternity leave. And then obviously everything changed. So back then, I was calling myself a collaboration consultant, and I was working with primarily service based business owners to help them grow their business with partnerships. So I think my talk was on like negotiation through collaboration or something like that. It was basically how do you seek the overlap, which is kind of a theme in my business. My new business is called Overlap Collective. I carry around this handy demonstration tattoo here to
Okay.
showcase the Venn diagram, which is the crux of everything I do, right? It's finding the overlap on the Venn diagram between you and other people, different ideas and the middle place, right? Balance, all about getting to that overlapping place. And so back then it was in the form of collaboration. 2020 kind of crushed my soul, crushed my business. I got pregnant with my second child at the end of that year, ended up 1 year later going back to work in house for an online membership hosting company and did community strategies, operations, that kind of thing for about 2 years. Worked with hundreds of online communities, membership associations to help them really like launch their community, grow it, attract the right members, engage and retain those members. And it was wonderful until it wasn't. And then that put me back out into the world of entrepreneurship, which I'm so glad to be back because I missed it desperately. So I'm about a year and a half into this iteration of the business, and it's everything I was doing last time, plus a focus on community and connection. So the new business is Overlap Collective. I call myself a connection centered strategist, speaker, and facilitator. And everything, all roads lead home to how do you connect better with yourself and others to achieve your goals, whether you're in a day job or you're an entrepreneur or you're a thought leader or anything really. Any goal can be achieved by leveraging community connection collaboration, which I call my 3 C's to saving humanity because they
All
kind of
right.
are that big of a deal.
Yes, yes. Based on what you learned working for like that community pro, are we allowed to use the name of the little
Sure.
company or
It was
Mighty
Mighty
Network?
Network.
Mighty Networks. What did you learn? The top three takeaways in terms of building a successful community based on your
Hmm.
experience working with all those creators.
most people and companies and brands should not have an online community. That was the biggest takeaway.
I love it. Tell us more. Tell us more.
It's just it I think became one of those things that brands felt like they had to have. It was very hot for a while there, but I saw it over and over again. I worked in the Mighty Pro department, which were the companies and brands and a lot of individual thought leaders, coach types who would launch their own community just like everybody else on Mighty, but they would have their own fully white labeled custom app as well. So it was a very high price point product. And part of their agreement every year was they got their own community strategist, which was me and my other team members. And so I was consulting basically for all of these different organizations. And what I saw time and time again was there would be so much emphasis and momentum around building and launching a community. And then it would hit like the month or two past launch. And a lot of them would be like, well, now what do? We just have to keep doing this.
Mm,
We have to keep coming up with content and we have to keep attracting new members and we have to actually keep those members. So I saw a lot of the like momentum shift once it moved into the next phase of community management, which is really hard. It takes a lot of intention and effort. And again, most of them didn't really need that because their members or their clients or whoever they were putting in that membership didn't really want that. They never asked for it. They
Mm,
never asked
mhm,
their people if they wanted to connect with other people who were using the product or attending the event. Now, some of them were excellent use cases. Some of my favorites were online memberships that were attached to some kind of retreat or conference or event
mm.
because it gave attendees a place to go start pre networking before they came to the event, whether it was virtual or in person or hybrid. And it gave the event organizers a place to really share all of the information they needed to about the event, get people excited, start dripping out content, doing a lot of like that pre work that makes showing up to the actual event not feel like the first time you're thinking about the event or the other people. And then throughout the event, you have a great home base to keep people engaged when they go back to their hotel room at night or whatever. And then, of course, the long term impact afterwards was always so impactful because then you got to continue the relationship with other attendees and speakers and really stay in touch. And that is what drives repeat event attendees over and over. And it's no surprise to me that a lot of that has to do with the networking component. And
Yeah.
that's obviously what I care most about right now in this business is how do I teach people how to build reciprocal relationships and networks that support their success. And you can only really do that when you're supported by the other circles or events or communities that you're part of. So it's really like a two-way thing. I hit the back of the house with the people creating the communities and events and the front of the house with the actual people attending the events or being part of the community. So it's two-way street.
I love it. Mandy, over to you.
well, it's funny that you led with Mighty Networks because that was one of my questions too, and I belong to a bunch of coaching, my husband calls them cults. I belong to a bunch of coaching communities, and it feels like they all use Mighty Networks, so I'm really familiar with that platform, and if it's not Mighty Networks, there's always some sort of, like, community platform. And I have had that experience too where I'm like, "Oh, this is just like one more platform I have to check," right?
Mhm.
It's one more platform I gotta check a notification. It's one more and Amani, I know you're nodding your head because that's how I feel about Slack. Amani loves Slack,
I'm with
everybody,
you,
if you wanna
Mandy. I hate Slack
I hate
communities.
Slack, right? I'm
Yeah,
like, it's just one more thing.
too
But I
noisy.
will say there are some communities that do it right. So that was like
Mhm.
the big thing I wanted to ask for those people right now that are out there, like our previous guest, Dr. Alessandra Walsh, she runs a community of professional executive women called Noteworthy, and everybody's on Mighty Networks. Like, so for people like this that are using that and are building community, what can they do to be successful if
Mm.
it's not an event based? If it's just
Yeah.
like this is a collection of people, what can they do if they're using those platforms that make them successful
There's
and
a lot of
engaged? You want people to be
yeah.
engaged. Yeah.
There's a lot of really good tips and tricks. I mean, one of the very tangible things I used to encourage my hosts to do was encourage their members to replace, let's say they have an Instagram habit, replace where the Instagram icon or app lives on their phone with either the Mighty Network app or the custom
Mm,
app of the community.
mm,
Because what you're trying to do, especially when you're first launching or welcoming new members into your community, is you're trying to build in your community as part of their daily routine because if it's anything less than that, it's so easy to forget. So, some of the things I would say is on your phone, put the app where you know you're going to actually see it and think about it and check it. I'm not a big notifications person. Little red bubbles stress me out. So I would prefer have it built into my day to check versus being prompted to check with notifications. So there's a lot of people that feel the same. For the other contingent who doesn't mind the bubbles, I find that they actually are not really motivated by that number to come in and check. So you still have to find a way to like almost habit stack, right? Meaning like attach checking the notifications or popping into the community daily to something else you already do daily. So for me, I like to go to communities on my desktop a little bit better. So I would put it as one of the tabs that open when I start Chrome every morning so that it's right there. I have that with LinkedIn as well. So I know to go in and take a look at what everybody's up to in the feed every day. It just helps me better stay in touch. So it's little things like that. It's like, how can you make being in this community feel like part of their daily routine? So getting that habit. And then another big thing that people kind of forget is it's not about drowning your members in content. We all create so much content for so many different platforms, so many different purposes. But with a community, if one of the purposes of it is to educate, or let's say it's to engage your members and help them connect better with each other, you need to be meeting people on their various levels. So that could look like having standing once a week events that you know people are going to come to. It could look like having good prompts in your feed once a day, every other day, at least a few times a week that are encouraging the people that are happy to chime in, typing. And so then you've got the people that maybe they want to meet more one on one. Depending on the size of your community, you could pair people up. You could have a buddy system. You could have
Mm.
cohorts of people if they're coming in at certain times. But what you're really trying to do is help people be accountable to each other so that they feel like they need to show up because that's part of their deal of being in that community. So giving people a reason to check in and then making it so easy for them to do that part of their day, that's going to increase engagement, which will of course increase retention.
I love that. It's funny because even though I complain about it, I do once I'm in there, I love it. I love celebrating my wins. I
Yeah.
love Amani, not Slack, by the way. I'm not happy once I'm in Slack, by the
Okay,
way.
fair
But I
enough.
love you. I love you and I will do what makes your
Thank
life
you.
easier.
Thank you. Love you too.
But
Thank
like
you.
once I'm once I'm in these other communities, I am, because there is good content, but it's resources and it's available at my fingertips. So I like the idea of putting the icon where my Instagram icon is because I am checking that throughout the day. And it does become a habit. I like that. And I do want to be there for my coaching community. I want to be there and we get so much from each other. It is a support
Yeah.
system and accountability system. So I like that. I want to hang on partnerships for a minute because you have been in some level of partnerships, an expert in partnerships in your whole career. So I just want
Mhm.
to ask you, like, what happens when a partnership goes wrong? Like, when
Yeah.
do you stay in? When do you get out? How do you make it better? And Amani, I'm not talking about us. We're good. We're good.
Are you talking about us, or are you talking
This
about
is
relationships?
actually
Are
an
you talking about
intervention,
relationships,
Amani.
relationships, or something else? Because I want to hear Bailey's
This is
answer.
an
All of
intervention.
the
It's all
above.
the same. That's what's
Right.
funny. In all
Mm.
of my work, it's all applicable to everything. Like I talk about partnerships in like with the lens of entrepreneurship or marketing or growth or whatever. Sure. That's my doorway in, but the advice is applicable to personal relationships, friendships, it doesn't matter. And talking about like I wrote a piece last year on my Substack, which is also called Seeking the Overlap, and did a podcast episode on when to stop seeking the overlap. And
Mm.
it was after the election. It was when things were very, very tense. Not that they're any less tense now, but with opposing sides and viewpoints, especially amongst family and friends. So I did this whole piece on when it's okay to stop seeking the overlap. And the same goes for professional partnerships. And it's honestly when you stop feeling seen, respected, supported, like you can tell when there's one side that's carrying more of the weight than the other side. And it always comes back to clear communication and transparency and trust. And I think you really shouldn't enter into a partnership, certainly not a long term one of any kind, without deep trust already at the center of that and respect for each other. Because, when you're coming together to create something independent of the two of you, you're creating a third thing. I call it my this plus your that equals our magic. And when you're
Mm,
creating that magic together, you need to both be fully aware of where the other one is. And even if it's an email campaign, I don't care what it is, you need to be on the same page. And what I see happen a lot with when partnerships go awry is when the communication stops. And usually it's because one side falls behind the expectations or deliverables. They begin to feel shame about it and they just ghost. And that's the absolute worst option for saving a partnership is when somebody feels ghosted because the person being ghosted automatically thinks it's something they did wrong, right? We
mm.
all jump to like, what did I do? What did I say? Are they mad at me? And 9 times out of 10, it's something on their side. So if you're on the side that's like, oh God, I'm embarrassed because I'm behind on this, or like, just get it out in the open and make sure that you're staying on the same page and lines of communication are wide open because then it'll be salvageable. But if you ghost somebody or if you start just being a little bit shady and non-committal and not meet expectations and deadlines, it's going to sour that relationship quickly. And if you're on the other end of that and you're like, what the hell? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Again, you reach out, you communicate, you level set, you make them feel safe to own up, right? Like I have 2 little kids. Those little kids that I was talking about having in the pandemic are now almost 4 and 6, which is insane. And when they screw up, I'm always like, "Look, you're not in trouble. Like this is a learning moment. Let's talk about it. Don't hide from me. Don't be shameful about it. It's okay." And the same goes for adults, right? So I think if you can just get it out there, be clear, and then, that still doesn't mean it's going to go well, but at least you can wrap it up knowing that you did your part and you did your best to try and turn it around. Because ideally you liked that person,
Yeah.
right? If you did a partnership of any kind, you had a good thing. So you don't want to just throw it away because, feelings and egos.
Right,
Well, there's a
right.
reason you come together. One of our past guests, Julie Dunkel, talked about business partnerships. And she talked about, get a document, no matter what it is,
Yes.
because the document helps you determine what happens when it doesn't go well. The document isn't like, here's all the things going to happen when things go well. The document is like, we're disillusioned, we're separating, we're dissolving this. But what you're talking about is like everything in between, how to prevent the dissolve, right? And
Hmm.
I think sometimes we come out strong in the beginning and then we get to the part where we're dissolving, but we forget there's so much opportunities for resilience in those partnerships in between. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what you're talking about. I appreciate that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the parenting world, they call it repairing, right? There's this
Mm,
parenting expert, Dr. Becky, and she talks about how when there's a fracture in your relationship with your child, let's say you lost your temper on them, and in the case of partnerships, let's say somebody didn't meet their deadline, they felt embarrassed about it, and there's a fracture. When you repair, you end up making the relationship stronger than it was had you never fractured to begin with. And it's like the Japanese art of kintsugi, right? Which is repairing broken pottery with like gold. And it's
Mm,
the
yeah.
idea that when you put it back together, it is stronger and more beautiful than it was had it never broken to begin with. So there's so much opportunity for actually strengthening a relationship if you guys can come together in this place of honesty, transparency, and trust, and then just level with each other. And then maybe you still want to break up, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But at least you tried to save it, right?
it's
Well
beautiful.
said. Well said. I want to go back to when you were actually you mentioned really quick, like Substack. That's a platform that's been getting a lot of buzz lately. What was your thought process into using Substack? What's been your experience? Do you recommend it? Kind of fill us in on that because I thought it was really interesting that you listed that and you also mentioned it.
Yeah. I have been in business for myself on and off for a decade now. And so I've always been teaching workshops as like the primary way that like primary services, right? Which means I've had a newsletter of some kind for a decade now. And I've been on MailChimp. Then I was on, who knows, I've been on a bunch of them. And I still use Flowdesk as my primary like email management system. Shout out to Flowdesk. It is fabulous. Substack came about because I was finding myself wanting to have other conversations that weren't neatly packaged under my like 3 C's, community connection collaboration umbrella. And I had a monthly digest that I did all last year called the 3 C's Digest. And it was very like specific tips, lots of resources, lots of recommendations, but I didn't feel like I had any place to really roam free in that newsletter. But I didn't want to do another email. So Substack popped on my radar last year as well. And I was like, I'll take a look at it. And, there's a few out there, but why I like Substack is there's a lot of really good organic reach and traffic that you can get from it. I have, I think, 3 different Substack writers who recommend Seeking the Overlap, my Substack. And every day I'm getting new subscribers because of that
Yeah.
tiny little recommendation feature that they have. And I'm just listed in their list of recommended Substacks. They don't hype it up. It's not something extra. So I really like that it can be out there and easily findable. They don't have to like subscribe to my list and find a downloadable and a lead magnet and all the things. It's just there. And so I really like that feature. They have a lot of different ways to communicate, and I've been experimenting for the last year with it. I think I launched the Substack like the day after I left Mighty, and so that was December of 2023. So I've been on and off, but I actually got a notification this morning that I have consistently published a piece for 15 weeks in a row now, which is probably the most I've ever been
Great.
consistent with a newsletter piece, email kind of thing at all. And it's because I have habit stacked it. And just to go back
Mm,
to that real quick, I'm in a weekly writing group container where we just kind of body double for each other. We write for an hour. Nobody's talking. We're just writing. I do that on Wednesdays. I publish on Fridays. So just a shout out to like building it into your systems and into your
mm,
week. It increases the likelihood of it getting done. But Substack is great. I've experimented with their podcast feature. I've experimented with like reading my Substack aloud and putting an audio feature in there. And I'm just always trying new things. And it's so easy to do. I would say all in setup is maybe an hour. And I keep tweaking it and trying new things. But for the most part, it's there. It's growing independently of me. And there's a lot of opportunity for people who are not in your world to find you, which, as you both know, is very helpful when you have a
yeah.
business.
Yeah. Because I coach a lot of musicians, and Substack keeps coming up on whether or not they should maybe try it out or add it to their workflow. So I was curious to get your input. So thank you for that. As you mentioned, you've been in and out of like working on your own for 10 years, the last decade. How do you consistently get the courage to come back and try again and again without like saying, you know what, this is a wrap, it's too difficult?
Low level mental illness, I don't know. Like I think people who are
Same, yeah.
entrepreneurs are a little bit off. Like we have to believe that it's possible despite the odds.
Yeah.
I was actually recently diagnosed as autistic in December and ADHD like 2 months ago. So I have the combo ADHD, which is an interesting whole conversation in and of itself, but the ADHD in me is what always pulls me back in to the thrill of creating something from scratch, building a whole brand from nothing, telling the world about it. I'm very good at that part. What I have struggled with in the last decade is recurring revenue, it's prospecting. In other words, I don't do it. It's sales. It's like I'm so good at about half of the business part of it. And then the other part is like, can't everybody just find me organically and just hire me? Just trust me. I'm going to do a great job for you. And to be fair, that is how I have gotten all of my opportunities has been through my network, through referrals, through people saying my name in rooms that I'm not in, which is why I'm so passionate about the work I do, because that is literally what I teach people how to do. But it's also not scalable, it's not sustainable, and you can't count on that. So my personal, phase of business right now, a year and a half in, is getting really serious with myself about the pieces that I'm not drawn to, the pieces that do not provide me with a big dopamine rush every time I do them. They scare the crap out of me. And so I'm moving towards those pieces because if I want to be in business in 6 months from now, I have to. And so I'm getting my act together in that area. But I have really, really, really leaned on my community for the last decade to get me any kind of great opportunity, to keep me in business, keep people hiring me, and keep people inviting me to their podcasts and their shows and their stages of any kind. So it
Yeah.
works, but not very scalable.
So I have a question that's going to actually segue over to Mandy, because what are some of the specific things you're doing to like attack like business development and like growing your recurring revenue. The reason I'm saying it's going to segue to Mandy is particularly skilled at those type of activities, so she can
Mm.
hear what you say and then share some of her wisdom if she would be so inspired.
Well, a door is wide open, Mandy. Please come on in if you've got anything good for me. But my business development efforts have always been networking focused, right? So it's being part of communities, but also participating regularly in those communities. It's not just being a faceless, nameless member who never engages. It's actually showing up, introducing myself from time to time, putting in a lot of good community karma before asking for anything, which
Yeah.
people forget about a lot. They'll
Mhm.
just wait
Mhm.
until they need something and then suddenly they're really active and everybody sees right through that. Nobody
Yes.
wants to help the person that's just coming in hot with the ask. So I'm a joiner. I've been a joiner of things since I was tiny. I used to call myself an extracurricular enthusiast and I still very much am, but what I've really focused on in the last decade as it relates to being part of things is making sure I'm making deposits before I'm withdrawing, being a good community member, helping others, opening doors for others. So it's partially that it's being in spaces where my ideal client or collaborators or cheerleaders may live. It's also making sure that I'm not planting a bunch of seeds and then neglecting my garden, which I used to do early in my career too. I would meet people like you wouldn't believe and then just totally drop the ball. And I know so many people do that. We go to conferences and events, collect business cards. Maybe we connect on LinkedIn if we're really in a good headspace that day. And then nothing happens. So that's a big part of what I teach people too is that follow up. It's the nurturing and then leveraging of the build, nurture, leverage cycle of relationships. So the garden analogy works perfectly because most of us will plant a million seeds and then just walk away and forget they're there, keep planting seeds all over. You might get lucky, something might sprout without much effort and intention. And that happens for sure, especially if the other person is good at the follow up where you're not. But really, your greatest success is going to come from watering, nurturing, pruning, making sure that you're taking good care of those relationships long before you go to harvest the fruit or vegetables. So that's kind of how I approach it. And I think it's helpful. So from a biz dev standpoint, my focus, especially going into quarter, are we going into quarter three? Ooh, in
Yes, we
July,
are.
quarter three.
Looking
We
forward.
are.
How?
We're here.
Ugh, how? We're going into quarter three in a month. And so my goal for the rest of this year is not just to build new relationships, but really to reignite dormant relationships, reach back out to people I haven't connected with in a while, update them on what I'm working on these days, because I do have a couple new offers that have come about in the first 6 months of this year. And so it's letting them know how they can support me where I am today, not where I was a year and a half ago when we last spoke or longer. Right. So it's nurturing those existing relationships and then really tapping in and reminding them, hi, I'm here and this is what I could use support with. What can I help you with? Right. Because it is obviously not just a one way ask. It's good to catch up. Like, I want to know what you're working on so I can help you out. And by the way, this is what got going on too, in case you know of anybody that might be interested. So that's my main biz dev strategy.
Okay, Mandy, take it away.
I mean, I think that's probably where most business owners do fail because they forget the power of reigniting relationships or reconnecting with people where they're at now and meeting people where they're at now because it's so much different than where they started. So I love that that's an important part of your strategy. You call yourself a professional friend maker, which I love. And you just gave this beautiful example of how to maintain friendships, maintain these business and personal relationships. I'm curious, as we evolve in our businesses or as we evolve in relationships, there's times where you got to fire a client or there's times where we got to break up with a friend. So, how do you do that? Like,
Mm,
how do you recommend people do that? Because it's a skill to build and foster, right? But there's also a skill with that breakup as well, whether that's a friend you've outgrown
yeah.
or a client that's outgrown your business or you've outgrown theirs. Like, what's your strategy for that part?
Oh, it's so hard. But for whatever reason, in this last year or two, I've gone through a lot of unexpected friendship breakups. I turned 40 last
Mm.
September. I sort of blame moving into this decade because you're just evaluating everything. Life is changing. You're like, okay, is this how I want to continue on? Are these the people that still match where I'm going, right? Because if you're doing it right, I think you're always evolving and growing and adapting to hopefully your more authentic core self. You're getting clear about your goals and your values in life, and you're hopefully peeling off the things that no longer serve that. And relationships are natural. They're naturally going to be part of that peel off. I call it pruning, just like a garden, right? Like if you want your
Mhm.
tomato plant to grow really strong and tall, you got to prune off the little branches that are not going to produce fruit. They're just going to take resources and nutrients. It doesn't make it easy, but it does make it important. And I think when you can frame it to yourself as being really intentional about where you're going to put your energy and your resources and your time, of which we are all short on, just the way life is, right? Then it makes it easier to imagine, okay, if I have fewer people that expect something from me or that I'm going to pour into, then I can really, really double down on the relationships that feel super aligned and impactful for me today and where I want to be tomorrow and in the future. So I don't always think you have to have an official breakup. I think
Mhm.
sometimes these things sort of just, it ends up being like a fade away rather than like a breakup. That can feel equally painful in its own way because it's kind of like a long thing as opposed to like an immediate confrontation. I hate confrontation. So unless it's like I really need to stand up for myself or something's happened that's just I'm in the wrong, they're in the wrong. If a conversation, if there's like not a particular point that happened that you need to address and deal with for your own closure, for their closure, then I think it's okay to let things fade and recognize that you actually don't owe it to anybody to continue to show up for them if they're not also showing up for you, or if they are showing up for you, but it feels a little off. Again, just like with partnerships, open lines of communication are the kind thing in this case, in any case. So if you're having a situation where you're like, man, I have not liked the last few interactions I've had with this person who I've maybe been friends with for a long time, it's okay to say to them next time they reach out, like, I just want to be honest with you. Like, I feel like there's something going on here. Like, something's off, something's different. Maybe you've changed, maybe I have, but I wanna know if there's something that we can do to fix this. And, on the flip side, if you're like, "I'm actually good with this ease out situation," just let it be.
Yeah.
And you never know. People come back, people grow. I've had a lot of friendship breakups that I'm like, "Holy crap, I could not have called that one a few years ago," but it ultimately was for the best. And I some of those people have come back into my life like 5, 10 years later. We're both in new places and we're ready to sync back up. And so you just life is long, it's also short. You never know which version you're going to get, but you have to sort of go into relationships assuming that it's a long game, but the stuff that happens in the day-to-day in the short term is really like what builds up to the overall relationship. So being intentional, being kind, being open and communicative, always going to be the way to go. And sometimes it's okay to just let them drift out to sea.
Yeah, I love this idea of being open to things coming back because I've had that happen too, where I'm like, I don't serve them, they don't serve me, like we're just gonna drift away. But then all of a sudden, life changes, conditions change, and all of a sudden you have something new in common, and then it's a familiar thing, right? Then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, welcome back. I appreciate you talking about in your 40s about doing just relooking at everything. I did the same at 45. I did an audit, like a life audit of my business, of my loved ones, of my friends, and I still have it up here. It's surround yourself with people who want to move their lives forward in a joyful and productive way, or
Mm.
sorry, productive and joyful way. I know Amani, I sent it to Amani. Amani has that too.
Aw.
Oh,
But like I have that. And Amani's one of those people, right? Like who wouldn't want to be around Amani? He's amazing.
Truth.
But it was this that was my guiding light at 45, and, like, if I had a stomach ache, whether after we talked or we visited, or if I saw you call and I was like, "Oh, hit decline,"
Yeah.
like, I just mentally put you on that outer circle. I didn't do any breakups, but, like, just the notion of, like, eliminating that part of you is difficult too, so I like the drift. I like how you put it in adrift concept. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
have this graphic that I've created called the zones of connection. And the outermost
Ooh.
zone is could be connection. So these are people that you could be connected to if you made an effort. So maybe other members in a community you're part of that you've never interacted with, second degree connections on LinkedIn, things like that. Then you have casual connections. Those are people that you've exchanged some kind of pleasantries with. Maybe you've hung out once or twice, but you don't have each other's phone number. You're not quite in that friend area, but they are ripe for possibility. Then you have the friend zone, which are like your people. You probably have their phone number, you email, you like maybe you chat across two different channels, right? Like if you've got a DM conversation on Instagram going and a LinkedIn DM and you're in their email and you're texting, like you guys are probably friends if your conversations are spanning platforms. And then I have your top eight, your MySpace top eight for those of us
Oh,
who remember.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like those are like your besties, right? Like the people that are going to really have your back. And then I've got your core crew, which is really like maybe your partner, maybe your sibling, maybe your parent if you're close with them, your bestie, bestie, bestie. And then the innermost circle is you. And so I bring this up because people forget that human beings are going to keep evolving. Not just you, everybody else is doing their thing too. Life happens. And so it's not a one way like situation. You don't always only go to the next inner level. Sometimes you go back and forth between
Mhm.
casual and friend zone. Sometimes you might have somebody in your top 8 that end up in casual, right? Those are
Mm.
some of the people I'm talking about who I lost. They were in my core. They were in my top 8 in core. Hence
Wow.
why I was so shocked that it happened. And now they're out in casual, getting close to could be. And so people are going to come in and they're going to go out, and that is completely natural. Like we are all in this ecosystem together. I mean, just like the solar system, right? Like we're all kind of doing our own thing. We're still tied to each other in some way, but it doesn't mean you're going to be right next to them. It doesn't mean they're going to be at your next birthday party, right? But maybe they will be again in a few years. Or maybe you're going to be surrounded by an entirely new crew of people because that's just life. So it's normal and expected that people will come in and they'll go out.
Can you
Interesting.
send us the zone of
Yeah,
connection graph? I
Yes,
want to put that in the show notes. I think that's
yeah,
a really,
totally.
really good thing
yeah.
to do. That's
I
awesome.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let's see here. If we go to June 1st, 2026,
Hmm.
where would you like to be in terms of your business?
Oh, that's a great question. I would like to have a book deal. I would like to be working on my book, and I have a little notice on my calendar to reach out to somebody you connected me
Yeah,
to
Julie
about
from Book
that,
Marketing.
to
Yes, yes.
Julie to set up a time to
Julie's
chat.
great. She's
Yeah, she's a
great.
Yeah.
past yes too. Yeah, yeah,
I've been threatening to write a book since I was 9 years old, and it just hasn't quite been the timing. It still may not be the right time, but it will forever be on my goals list. So maybe this is the year, right? Maybe all of this writing I've been doing on Substack will lead to that. Who knows? Maybe it's a business book. Maybe it's a nonfiction book. I have no idea. So anyway, I would love to have something happening in that area, whether it's a book deal or it's a proposal out or I'm actually writing it. And then I would really love the bulk of my recurring revenue to be from my clients who are membership organization or association leaders who want me to come in and help teach their members how to better connect and collaborate with one another to increase that member engagement and retention. So I would love to have some annual contracts for those kinds of clients. Big, small, I don't really care. They all are exciting to me. I just want to see communities that are actually doing good in the world and attracting cool people succeed. Because if there's anything I'm confident about right now with the state of the world, is that we need each other so desperately, and people are so bad at knowing how to do that. And
yeah.
so, whether it's in that capacity with my membership association, consulting and workshop facilitation, or it's in my 3Cs Accelerator, which is a 6-week program for entrepreneurs, helping them really tap into the power of their network. I'm trying to teach people how to do the damn thing, not just
Yeah.
talk about it, not just say, "Oh yeah, community, we should yeah, I have a network." No, like here's how we're actually going to do it. So, between those two things, speaking, teaching, helping entrepreneurs, helping members better connect and collaborate with each other so that we can all succeed in this very uncertain landscape that we find
Yeah.
ourselves in still this many years
Okay.
later.
Mhm.
Okay. I have an idea like about how you can help musicians connect or grow their communities. That's a really big need too. So remind me to circle back with you on
Okay,
that.
will
We've come
do.
to the time of the show where we flip the script and let you ask both myself and Mandy any question you want. Nothing is off limits. So, who do you want to ask the question to first, and what is said question?
Okay. I have so many things I could ask. Yeah, I'm a podcast host too, so I like to ask the questions,
Yes.
but I think the one I'm curious about from both of you, because you both seem to be semi multi passionate people. Like you've got your hands in a few different things. You're not just one trick ponies. You probably know a lot of different people and are in a lot of different circles. So I want to know, of all of the circles, communities, groups that you're both part of, which one, and you don't have to say the name of it if you don't want to, but which one do you think does the best job of helping to facilitate connection between other
Mm.
members? Or where do you feel most connected to other people in that circle? And why do you think that is?
Mm. What's you have one right away? Man, I need to think on that one.
I mean, this I don't know if this is the best one, but the first one that came to mind is a circle that I created, and it wasn't there was no monetary thing around it. This has happened during COVID, and I stole this idea from somebody, and it's kept going. I created a swirl, and it's smart women I really like, and it was it's a Zoom call, and we talk for 45 minutes. We pick one topic. We pose one question, and we all talk about the same question the whole time. But we pose the question in advance so you can come with examples. Everybody's really vulnerable. Everybody talks. They give examples, and sometimes when we get off topic, somebody always brings us back. But it's one of those like unconditional love type things that like
Mm,
everybody's there because you really and some of these people have I've met all of them, but some people have never met each other, but they're having side conversations.
mm,
They're helping each other, they're supporting each other. You know, you talked about books, like somebody in our swirl wrote a book not too long ago. People are supporting her. Somebody's running for a political office. People are supporting her. And these people don't really know each other except for that one call 3 or 4 times a
mm,
year. And I think I created it because one of my work colleagues, she created one. And I just loved being a part of that. It was like once a week, you had to say why you were remarkable in an email. And this was amongst the swirl. And so it was like once a week, maybe I had a crappy week all week, but just at least once a week, I get to say why I think I'm remarkable. And all of these people are cheering you on. And
mm,
I loved how that felt so much that I was like, it originally started because I wanted to surround, I don't, we're, my husband and I are child free. And I wanted to surround myself by more women that were child free. What does that look like? So I put this list together. It was originally that. And then I just started adding people. So some have kids, some don't. But I call it the swirl. I copied off of the one person, but it's one of those enduring things that like we still do. And
mm,
there's no money exchange. It's just because people care. And
yeah.
it's a small group. And the thing is, like, come if you can. And if you don't, we're not measuring, we're not counting. Like, come if you can. And if you're not, we'll catch you the next time we share the wrap up notes. So that was like the first thing that came to mind. I know there's a lot of other business things I'm a member of, but I would say that one's really meaningful to me because we've covered, like, we've talked about aging parents. We've talked about
Wow.
entrepreneurial challenges. We've talked about perimenopause. I know
Mm,
you talk about that. I just listened to one of your podcasts. We talked about we talked about, like, the sandwich generation. Like, we talk about all these different things in some business, some not, but it's just meaningful because it's relatable.
yeah, it's your real lives. It's
Yeah.
like what I think you're hitting on there too, which I think is beautiful, is you're showing up as a whole person, not
Hmm.
just the business hat or not just the personal hat. It's like when people connect with other people on a whole level, you just get so much more juice for the squeeze, right? Because you're
Yeah.
not just cutting off all of these extra limbs of a person's world, right? So, for example, I was at a kids' party yesterday and I literally made friends with the mom and the dad who I've only ever seen in passing at drop off and pick up. But our daughters are like little besties at school.
Aw.
And I just really felt a connection between both of them. My husband and I both were like, kind of like them. Like, this is so fun. We're like meeting people. And by the end of
Aw.
it, we'd exchanged numbers. And I said, I was like, can we be friends? And they were like, yes, yeah, let's be friends. And we talked about what we did for work in that same circle, which oftentimes you're not crossing topics, right? If you're chatting with your kids, friends, parents, you're keeping it very kid focused or family focused. And if you're chatting with your colleagues, you're not talking about your personal life, but we are all whole humans. And when you can open it up and showcase some of your vulnerability and the things that you care about, that helps you seek the overlap way better
Mhm.
because you're showing what's in your circle and you're seeing what's in theirs, which allows you to see what's in both of yours. So I think that's so special that you have that. And I might snag that too because I just love
Steal it.
the idea of that.
I stole it. You should steal
Yeah.
it. We'll pay it
Oh,
forward. Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. I think for me, mine would probably be more like professional organizations. Like two come to mind, like MPI, of course, like lots of connections and strong there across the country. Different people
Yeah.
in different areas have brought me some close friends. So I think that one is very strong and continues to be very effective. And then I think I talked to you about like Brand Builders Group. That's another one that's kind
Mhm.
of newer that I've started to meet specific people within the organization that we kind of vibe with well. We'll talk, we set up Zooms. Like I have a Zoom call, I think in 30 minutes with someone that I talk to every 2 or 3 weeks. So those are two just because of the things we have in common, the way they encourage us to attend virtual events together. And then when you see someone in person that you've been maybe seen on the screen for 6 months, it's like a reunion. And
Yeah.
those are the two that come to mind for me.
That's
Yeah.
fabulous. Well, and it sounds like having that hybrid option between virtual and some in-person stuff, I mean, that really, really does it. It's like such a an amplifier of a relationship. If you can then get it offline, it just zooms
Yeah.
you past. I created this formula at some point on like, I think I called it like the friendship formula or something. And it was like frequency times the amount of time to the exponent of vulnerability equals depth. And the idea
Oh, there you
was,
go.
if you only see somebody once a year, but you're spending like a whole day with that person, like, people you go on trips with, right? Like
Mhm.
you're getting it all in on that one time. So the amount of time is large, even if the frequency is small. And if you can go deep and open yourself up to being more vulnerable, then the depth is going to be even more there. And then you look on the flip side and it's like you see people at parent drop off every single day for 30 seconds. It's going to take a
Mhm.
really long time to be able to get there. So
Yeah.
high frequency, low amount of time, low amount of
Yeah.
vulnerability equals shallow depth. So, yeah, I think that's great that it hits both of those and also you're so good at maintaining relationships, which not everybody is. And even with you and I mean, we connected a couple months ago for the first time since
Mhm.
beginning of 2020 and it was like, was
Yeah.
it 5 years or was
Yeah,
it a
exactly.
couple weeks? It doesn't
Exactly.
matter,
Yeah,
Ah.
great
right?
point. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's big.
yeah,
That's really
yeah,
helpful for
yeah.
that depth.
I want to
Cool.
jump back to something that you talked it just popped in my head is you talk a lot about the 3 C's and collaboration. All these things they sound great and we know they work, right? Because we live and breathe them. But I'm thinking about some of my coaching customers. I'm thinking about some really data driven or numbers focused people that might say, "Okay, that sounds really cute." But how does this produce results? And I know they
Mm.
produce results. I know they produce results. How do you have that conversation with skeptical people about this? Like how do you translate this into data? How do you translate this into the
Mm.
numbers and results?
It's definitely a tricky thing because so much of relationships are like qualitative data, right? It's
Yeah.
like you feel it, it feels good, instinctually that it works. But when you're looking at hard numbers, it's something you need to track. If you're a data driven person, you need to be tracking your relationship. So I'm actually in the final week of the first round of this accelerator that I've been running. And this week is all about making sure that you're set up for success for the coming quarters. So I've created a spreadsheet for the participants that is effectively both tracking like what their goals are, what their specific asks are, all of their credibility assets that they need to provide people to make good intros and recommendations and all of that. And the most important piece of this is who are you reaching out to? When are you meeting? What came from that call or that meeting, both short term, long term? And so it's really a matter of you need to be tracking the data that is important to you to track. A lot of my data with my network and my business development lives too much in my head. That's something I'm working on with this last month of quarter two as well, is getting it out of my head into documents so that I can really have a better understanding of what I'm looking at, use data to move forward. But it's about making sure that if you are putting in the effort, let's say you decide you're going to attend one networking event a month. Let's just be generous, one a month. And whether it's in person or online, anybody you meet from that, you should be writing them down somewhere, right? Or
Mm,
keeping a list somewhere and being able to say, like, okay, yep, I met Amani and Mandi at this MPI meeting. Amani and I had a coffee date. Mandi and I had a virtual coffee date. I shared X, Y, and Z with them about what I was working on. They shared X, Y, and Z with me. And then this came of it or did not come of it. And that can feel like a lot of work, but if you are a data driven person, sometimes seeing the actual results is going to make you more inspired to keep doing it. Right. And so it's about tracking it, it's about establishing your own metrics and KPIs for what equals success with relationships, because a lot of it is intangible. A lot of it is like feeling like you have people that will back you and support you, and recognizing that if you don't ask, you kind of can't expect a result to come of it, which a lot of people do. And I certainly did in the beginning of my career. I was like, well, people just know how I need support
yeah.
and they'll just offer.
Nope.
No, they're not. They're not going to do
Nope, gotta
that.
ask. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, no. And my framework for that is the ABCs of asking for support. You have to actually ask. You have to be clear and specific in what it is that you want. And you have to highlight your credibility. Why should they
Yes.
support you? Why should they introduce you? Why should they offer you an opportunity? And so, if you've got that part locked down, which is what I'm trying to help entrepreneurs do in this 6 week accelerator, then the asking part and the tracking part should be pretty fun and simple, right? If
Yeah.
you already know what you want and you're ready to go with somebody with all of the information you need to share with them, and then if it still doesn't turn into anything, that's also data, right? Maybe you're just
Yeah.
barking up the wrong trees, you're asking the wrong people, or you're asking for the wrong things from the right people.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of moving targets, but if you can really establish what it is that you're trying to do and you can be good about tracking and following up and all of that, then you will very quickly see relationships are how you get anything. I say people are
Mhm.
portals. People are portals to opportunities, to ideas, to information, to resources, to gigs. Literally, people are the portals to almost anything you want in your life, but nobody's going to go randomly open up their portal for you if they don't know what you want to do on the other side.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
Beautiful. Good
No,
stuff.
now we want to take you. I've asked you this question 4 years ago. I think the answer might have changed. But we want to go back to Gainesville, Florida, and talk to Bailey just as she's walking across that stage and graduating, and give
Oh,
her advice based on everything you learned so far. What advice would you give your younger self? Look at the deep sigh.
she wouldn't listen to a damn word I said. Let's just be real. However,
Oh,
what I would say is, right this second, decide what success means for you, not what you think success means, not what you think other people think success means for you, but what is actually meaningful to go towards. Because for the bulk of my 20s, for sure, I was just checking off boxes that from a to do list that I don't even know where it came from, but it felt like it was given to me. I did everything right. I
mm,
literally I bought a house at 22. I got married at 23. I was in my, career. I was traveling around the world doing seminars and conferences for the accrediting body for college business schools. I thought I had it figured out. And then I turned 25 and was like, wait, I don't want any of this
Mm,
crap. And I got a divorce and I sold my home and I got laid off from that job. And I moved all the way to California from Florida to be a TV show host because that felt better in the moment than doing what I was doing. So I think a lot of that could have been circumvented by establishing my own criteria for what a good life was and for what goals mattered to me to achieve, rather than trying to impress this board of judges that are unseen, unnamed, like mystery figures in my life. I couldn't tell you who was even on that board, but
right.
I acted like I was performing for them for the bulk of my 20s and like half of my 30s. And it really wasn't until I had kids and kind of my business fell apart during COVID and all of that that I was like, okay, I need to pump the brakes here. What am I even doing and who am I doing this for? And do I even like this? And cue another crisis of life. But I'm a few years out from that now, and I'm finally feeling like Oh, okay. A life that feels really good for me is possible. I am the one that has to do it though, and I can do it with the support of my community and my people. But I have to actually do the work. And as long as it still feels aligned, it doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel like work. It feels exciting that I'm like on the path to achieving the goals that I think are really exciting and letting the people who love me and want to see me succeed be part of that, as opposed to keeping them all out because it won't count if I have help, which is crazy. That is so much more enjoyable because then you're not doing anything alone. People love to help, they love to cheer you on if only they knew how to help and exactly what kind of support you wanted. So, yeah,
Great.
if
Great advice.
22-year-old Bailey could just do that from the start, who knows where we'd
Okay.
be.
Great advice. Great advice. Shout out to David Lawhorn, who's joining us on Facebook. Mandy, I'll let you take it home for us.
Gosh, I took so many notes here.
This
You say something, you've said it a couple times, not today, but just in some of your past conversations. You said success shouldn't be solo. What do you mean by that and why?
Well, it's just not. Even if people think, "Oh, that person succeeded all on their own." No, they did not. No, they did not. They might have struggled alone. They might have done the work in their office alone with nobody knowing and nobody supporting, but the fact of the matter is, opportunities do come through people. Ideas come through people. Support, resources, introductions, connections, all of that comes through people. And so the old African proverb, if you wanna go fast, go alone. If you wanna go far, go together. So I have had the problem of slowing myself down long enough to let other people catch up and run alongside me. But
Mm,
as I've gotten older, I've learned like it's worth slowing your pace a little bit so other people can be there with you. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't still be at this entrepreneurship game if it weren't for the people in my corner who believe in me and who want to see me succeed and who talk me off the ledge when I'm like, I'm out. I'm going to get a job at a coffee shop bookstore and I'm going to be so happy and I might not make much money, but who cares? What's money even? And they're like, okay, Bailey, okay, just
cool
back
your
it up a little
jets.
bit. No, it's gonna be okay. So, like, the people, whether they're just, like, talking you up, talking you off a ledge, or actually saying, "Hey, I know somebody who hires people to, do workshop facilitation for this organization. Let me connect you." It comes in many shapes and forms, but success really is so much more juicy and impactful and enjoyable when you can turn to your people and be like, "I did it. Thank you guys. We did it. Like, this is so exciting." Like, you get a great call. Who are you going to call and like celebrate it with if you haven't let anybody be part of your journey? But sending
Yeah,
that text or that call or that email being like, I got it. I booked it. I booked it. And that's so much more exciting. So
yeah.
it's good for your heart. It's good for your life. It's good for your business.
Well, you
Amen.
support so many people, and I'm sure there's so many cheerleaders virtually and in person around you all the time. How can we be your cheerleader? How can we support you and what you're doing right now?
The best thing is if you are part of an association or you are, you work with them, anybody that brings in speakers and workshop facilitators, please spread the word about what I do because whether it's like the kickoff talk to an event, teaching attendees how to actually meet other people and then take those relationships past the event, or it's teaching members how to actually make friendships and connections with fellow members in a community so that they can then go on to support and collaborate with each other. I'm really good at teaching that. That's my sweet spot. It's what I love to do. So that's my big ask is if you are connected to any professional organizations, membership associations, communities, groups who bring in speakers, ideally paid speakers, because your girl needs to make some revenue,
Yep.
then please send them my way. You can go to overlapcollective.com and get there, or just baileyhancock.com/workshops. That's got all of my rundown of, I think there's like 10 different workshops that I teach that are kind of all in this world of community connection and collaboration. And I love to do it. It's my favorite thing I do.
All
Beautiful. And
right.
then we'll pop your Substack and your
Thank
zones
you.
of connection graph. And maybe if you have a link to your next 6 week accelerator, we'll
Yes,
pop that all in the show notes. So just email that to us after. But I
will
have to
do.
say this really quick. This entire episode, I've been very fixated on the picture behind your head that it looks like one of
Which
your
one?
kids drew. The one that makes, yes, It looks like when you're standing up, it looks like you're wearing a cute little red hat. Just the end of it.
Oh,
I'm like, she's wearing like a little red hat, and then I'm like, oh no, it's a
like a
picture. Her
fascinator?
picture. Yes, yes. Anyways, I've
That
been
is so
looking at it
funny.
like, what is it? And I just realized it's a picture
Well,
behind
it's
your
that
head.
now that I'm looking, it kinda looks like one devil horn, so
Oh,
it could be either,
that too. It
depending on
could
the
be either.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been wonderful. It's been a
Those
great
are from my
visual. Yeah,
children.
that's adorable. So cool.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. I just, admire your courage. So continue to be courageous and stick to what lights you up. It's obvious that you love what you do, so we're here to help you. And I'm glad you reached out like a couple months ago. It was just like we hadn't talked in like a day or two. So just,
Yeah.
keep it up. We're here to help you. You got a new friend in Mandy, and we will see you soon. Round of
Thank you both so
applause.
much.
Yes,
Thanks for
Bailey Hancock.
being
There we
here.
go.
This is
Yes.
great, Bailey. My cheeks hurt from smiling. This is
I know,
great.
same. I had such a good
Mhm.
time with you 2. You
Me
guys are a
too.
blast.
Thank you for tuning in to Adventures in Business. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast on the platform that you're currently listening it on. And don't forget to share it with your friends and anybody that might be as much of the business nerds as Amani and I are. See you next time for another captivating interview.